As my houseplant collection's grown over the years, I found that one of the most difficult things actually isn't caring for the plants themselves, it's displaying them in a way that doesn't look like the sales section at Lowe's. What I mean by that is that over the years, I've had a tendency to just kind of compile a lot of small pots of plants next to each other in really close quarters, and it just never looks the way that I dream about it looking. If you scroll through Instagram, you'll see these pictures of people's homes that look absolutely gorgeous with all these plants displayed in them. However, no matter how many plants I buy, I find that it can be really difficult to replicate that look inside of my house. So today I want to share with you guys all the tips that I've learned over the years for displaying my plants in a way that I absolutely love, and how to transform your house from looking like this to looking like this. Now I know that I'm not alone in this problem, because in a recent poll, some of you guys also had mentioned that this is something that you struggle with. It's worth noting at the beginning of this video that everything I'm going to say is my opinion. There's no right or wrong way to display your houseplants. And if you happen to be displaying your plants in a way that I'll kind of talk about as being the wrong way of displaying plants, know that I've got nothing but love and respect for the way that everybody chooses to display their plants. These are just some things that have helped me feel happier about my collection over the years. So the very first thing I recommend doing is opening up Pinterest or Instagram and starting an ideas board. Actually, you're going to want to start two. Search something along the lines of rooms with plants or plant decor or something like that. Pin both the pictures that you absolutely love, and then at the same time as you're going through, pin the pictures that you absolutely do not like and would not like that to be the end result of what you live in. I would say pin a minimum of 10 on each board, but the more that you go through, the more that this will give you kind of a better idea of the trends that you do and don't like. Once you've got a lot of pictures in each one of those boards, open them up and start to look for trends that you see in there. Some of the things that I look for in particular are plants that come up as being repeated in those. For instance, ones that I like tend to always have monsteras, birds of paradise, long trailing pothos, and on the other hand, I found that ones that I don't like tend to have a lot of string of whatever, pearls, hearts, things that are colorful, things that just get really busy. Additionally, pay close attention to how they're displaying the plants. Are they hanging them on the walls? Are there a lot of little plants? Is it just a couple big plants? How dense are they in the home? And even take note of the non-plant related item. I think something that's really important is keeping in mind that even if you have the most beautiful and perfect plants for the space, you don't like the space that you're putting them in, chances are you're gonna end up looking at the plants and not being happy with how they're displayed in there anyway. Now, of course, sometimes these things can be difficult or even impossible to change. For instance, I rent this house and I have carpets in this room right here. I would love if it was literally anything but carpet. So sometimes you just have to work with what you have, but if you do have the ability to switch up things, I recommend starting there first and then going to plants second. Once you have a good idea of what style you're going for and what type of plants you tend to gravitate towards in the pictures that you looked at, this is gonna be the most important thing. And that means having really good self-control when you go plant shopping. I've said this before in videos, but I'm somebody who tends to be really drawn to super colorful plants at the plant store. However, when I think about plants that I bring into my home, I never like those plants when I bring them into my home. They always seem to clash with everything, and I end up just not caring for them as well as I could. You're gonna wanna be really specific about what you're buying and make sure that it fits that overall vision that you have. And this comes into play with the size of the plants that you're buying too. Of course, everybody has a budget that they're on, and I'm not saying to buy something that you can't afford. However, at least for myself, in almost every scenario, when I buy a plant that I really wanted, I almost always wish that I had bought that plant bigger or more mature. And when I have bought big plants, I find that I really, really love them in the space that I put them in, and they tend to just fill it out in a way that I'm much happier with. Now, additionally, sometimes you're just limited to what they have at the plant section. But one tip that I would say doing is, if your inspiration boards point towards you being somebody who likes really big, full plants, is if they only have 4-inch pots, buy a couple of those 4-inch pots and fill up an 8 or 10-inch pot with a few different plants. It won't be an instant fix, but it will help you get to that big lush look that you're looking for a lot faster. It's also important to think about the spaces that you do have and where you're looking to put plants. At the end of the day, there's probably just going to be places in your house that plants are not going to be able to be supported due to lack of light, or maybe because there's an air vent there that's blowing out hot or cold air. Sometimes it's just not a fit. And in those scenarios, there's nothing wrong with putting a fake plant there. The next thing to keep in mind is when you're placing the plants. Instead of placing a bunch of plants that are all about the same height together, try placing plants that are of various heights. This is going to give your space a feeling of a lot more depth to it. Additionally, try placing plants with different textures next to each other. A really lush foliage plant next to a succulent or something with really thin leaves can give a really nice contrast, as opposed to a bunch of plants that all look exactly the same. Finally, I don't think this is a hard rule, but I have learned from watching home decor videos that placing things in groups of 3 or odd numbers in general tends to look better than placing things in even numbers. And whether it was on purpose or not on purpose, looking throughout how I place plants in my house, I found that this does tend to be the way that I place plants. They just always end up in odd numbers. So let me know down below if you believe in the rule of odds, if that even is a rule, but I do think that it works to make things look a little more aesthetic. This next one sounds obvious, but it's still one that I'm actually kind of bad about doing sometimes, which is buying nice pots for your plants. I am the worst culprit of leaving my plants inside their nursery pots for months at a time until I find a pot that I like. I don't know if you feel the same way, but for me, buying pots just doesn't evoke that same feeling of excitement that buying a new plant. However, I can say from experience 10 out of 10 times when I move a plant from just being in a nursery pot to putting it in actually a decorative pot that's really purposely chosen, it makes me love that plant so much more, and it makes me love the area that it's displayed in so much more. So while sometimes it doesn't seem like it's really worth investing in, I promise it's going to make a huge difference in the overall appearance of your plant collection. This next one probably sounds obvious, but I often need a little motivational boost to do this, and this is just cleaning up any loose ends that you have laying around your plants. That means dirt that's fallen out of it, water spots that have leaked around the edges, extra plant supplies that you have just laying around. Leaving time to tidy up these areas as part of your regular plant care regimen is actually really important. Furthermore, storing your supplies in a place that's hidden but really easy to access is also very important. I know in the past I've stored my supplies in places like my garage or in a shed. And while it makes me sound really lazy, for whatever reason, having to walk an extra 20 feet to go get these supplies makes me not want to use them. And because of that, sometimes I won't fertilize my plant or I won't repot my plant when it needs it just because I don't want to have to go get the stuff out. So finding that balance between it being accessible and it being hidden is really important to keep in mind. Also, don't be afraid to trim off those dead pieces of your plants. I know people have different feelings on this, and some people even say that leaving a dead leaf on there will allow the plant to suck up more nutrients from it and things like that. Personally, for me, when a plant starts looking rough and has all these dead crunchy leaves on it, it just makes me not want to take care of the plant even more. I'm personally a big advocate of as soon as those leaves start to look crunchy or yellow or whatever is happening to them, either trimming them off completely or trimming around the edges to just clean things up. And overall, it makes me feel a lot better about my collection. It makes things look a little more clean and overall just more aesthetic. Now, of course, your houseplants are never going to be perfect. And if you're new to houseplants and are kind of somebody who really likes everything to be perfect, I think it's something that's really important to get comfortable with. With them being living things, it's just natural that it's going to be crunchy, crispy pieces, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But when you have the time to go in and trim things up, it really will make a big difference in the appearance of your overall collection. My next tip is to find a balance between plant decor items and non-plants and integrating those in together. Again, I've been in a place before where I've wanted to cover every flat surface in my home with a plant, particularly if it's somewhere that gets a lot of good light. And while I'm still not the best at this, instead by adding those little accent pieces in there, it's going to make everything look more purposeful and cohesive as a design altogether. Final thing that I'll say about designing your home and arranging your plants in a way that you love is doing one small area of your home at a time. If you look at your entire house and say that you need to rearrange everything, it can feel really overwhelming and sometimes you don't even know where to start. Instead, I recommend picking one corner and getting that area specifically to how you really like it, and you can take as long on this process as you need. I know acquiring new pieces of furniture or decor items, shelves, pots, things like that, it can really add up over time. I will say for me, thrifting has been a major way that I've cut down on those costs, but don't feel like you have to dive in all at once. However, as you do start chipping away, take progress pictures over time, and you're going to be amazed when you look back in a year how far you've come along and how much better things look. Personally, I still have a ton of areas in my house that I really want to renovate. So if you want to follow along as I do each one of these areas, don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below. And if you're interested in checking out how I recently restyled my front patio, then click this video right here. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you guys in the next one.